Hola.
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 Hola, you're listening to FirstGen Healing, a podcast on Latinx healing and awakening journeys. My name is Priscila Luna. I am your host. And in this episode, I have an amazing group of Latinas coming together to talk about self-love.
Yay.
Hey.
And so I would love for each one of you guys to introduce yourself, let us know where you're from and what you do.
My name is Viridiana Rodriguez. I'm a Latinx mental health therapist. I am currently in Long Beach, California. And my biggest mission and goal is to really discover self-love within yourself, within our Latino culture that's not really taught. So we'll get into that. But that's just a little bit of who I am.
Do you want to share your ads, Viridiana, so
Oh,
they can find
yes.
you?
Amar Therapy on TikTok and Instagram.
Perfect. And my colleague, Viridiana, I'm Georgina Garay Lozano. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am in Santa Clarita, California. So I practice remotely for clients all over California. And I also offer coaching services for FirstGen that wants to do some intergenerational healing and take up space. I am on TikTok and on Instagram. My TikTok handle is Georgie Garay, and on Instagram, I am Georgina Garay Lozano, my full name and the two last names and everything. That's a little bit about me.
And hello, everyone. My name is Michael Lemus, and I am originally from LA, so Los Angeles, California, but I actually now reside up north here in Sacramento, so the state capital. I've been here for the last, give or take, 7 years, but I'm the founder and CEO of my own company and platform. It's called Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus, LLC, and it's all about reclaiming your power, reclaiming your happiness, a lot of self-love. But within that role, I am a coach, a strategic brand consultant, and a speaker. And also, I'm on TikTok and Instagram as a content creator at Arise with Lemus, and I'm super excited to be here.
Hey, everyone. My name is Enrique Ramirez. I'm from Long Beach, California, and I'm Mexican American. I currently work with adults who have disabilities. I support them within workforce. And my @ for Instagram and TikTok is Enry_what18. I am a content creator on TikTok mostly. I'm currently in a transitional phase with the content that I create, but yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome.
Nice. And my name is Emily Tapia. I'm from LA, born and raised. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. It's called Tapias Fuego. So I sell products. I do events at restaurants and bars and breweries. And I also am venturing into content creating, which has been fun. I do mobile bar services as well. My ads are Tapias Fuego. My personal page is talks with M_. And that's where I kind of talk more about all the ventures that I'm doing, including my business, including a podcast that I'm restart pretty soon as well.
So obviously we have a group of amazing humans here, and I'm so honored that you guys all are spending some time talking about self-love. I think the topic of self-love is so important because there are so many places in the world, and just we receive so many messages of why not to love ourselves, right? Whether it's physically or achievement wise or just everything in between. And I think I'd love to start off the conversation with talking about maybe who from here had examples of self-love, because I will already put myself to the side and say that I don't think I had examples of self-love. So I wanted to see if any of you guys did.
I did kind of experience it slightly now that I'm an adult. I look back and I see my stepmom, the woman my dad was with for many years. I noticed she'll do things like, I just want to treat myself to a sundae at McDonald's, and she'll just go. And I remember as a kid feeling like it's a regular day. We're going to just go get McDonald's just because. But I remember her just doing it because she wanted to. And, when she wanted to go on a run, she would just, I'm going to go on a run. And she would do marathons and, things like that. So as I look back as well, I also noticed that she didn't have any kids. I was the only step kid. So I think that programmed in my head for a long time that you could only have self-love if you are seeing you have no kids, you have no. So I think I'm trying to transition into you can do both. You can be a parent, you can be a wife, you can do all these things and then, still have that self-love.
I'm wondering if she was first gen.
She was.
She was. Ooh,
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Her parents were from El Salvador.
Okay. I mean, I think one, that's super eye-opening already, right? That most of us sitting here did not have necessarily examples of that, you know? And I think a lot of us had examples of the opposite, which is putting yourself last, and that kind of made you a good person, right? Or a good worker. So it's kind of like the identities that you had to embody were outside of you. Like everything that it has to do with others is what's most important as opposed to with ourselves. So maybe we can talk about when you guys started to come into the knowing of what self-love was. You know, like when was that like a thing that you were like, "Ooh, interesting. Maybe I should work on that."
I think for me it all started when I started on my weight loss journey. That's when I really started focusing on myself and really just digging deep within myself and what I needed to do and accomplish and the things I needed to focus on at the time. I think that's when it all started for me, which was back in 2000 and I would say 2016. Yeah.
Interesting. Would you say that self-love started in a physical sense for you?
Yeah, it definitely
Okay.
did. It started
Okay.
it started in a physical sense, and I think mentally and spiritually it started transitioning into that. I think later on, about maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, that's when it
Okay.
started. Um, I started working more so on my mental health and my you know, spirituality and just healing my mind.
Yeah.
Um, because when you lose a significant amount of weight, it's hard for the mind to catch up to that as well. So that's definitely, yeah. Now it's transitioned into that now.
I'll share. I think for me, for sure, it was after I left a long toxic relationship that I didn't know was toxic while I was in it. I've always known better, but I think I recently started doing better. And I think I probably loved him more than I loved myself for a long time. And I started my business in like late 2019, early 2020, when I had the business idea. Um, I was kind of starting to like emotionally detach myself from that person. And I think it was because I finally had something to really pursue and focus on, and I was motivated about that. When I was deciding whether I should leave him or not, just told myself, like, okay, I love him so much. Should I just forgive him? But then I checked myself, like, no, you have to love yourself more. Like, I haven't been loving myself the way I should and the way I deserve. And ever since then, I know my worth more now. Like, I have that confidence to be like, I know what I bring to the table, I know what I offer. And I think that's what has allowed me to also be in a new healthy relationship.
So we have like in a physical sense on this side
Yeah. And this
through
is like
relationship, entrepreneurship. What about the top row?
I can piggyback a little bit on that concept because I feel like mine also initiated with a relationship, but then slowly across the board, I started implementing things within my family as well. And like being the first to like move out and being a Latina woman, not married, not having kids, like leaving the house without that like concept, right? And breaking that cycle. So yeah, it stemmed from also relationship, like walking away from a relationship. But then slowly, that was one area, but then slowly I started to really be transparent in other areas of my life, like work, leaving one school district that wasn't serving me as to the best potential that I felt like I needed at that time, and then family and leaving the home, right, and establishing that new identity, and going deeper. It was more of like giving myself that love in that space, in that safety that I needed outside of that home. And parents and our parents won't understand that, right? But being able to take that leap of faith and do it for your own sanity and for your own healing, because you are going to grow and more opportunities and more things will come your way. But that's a little bit of my self journey.
Thank you.
I think I knew I was like choosing myself when I started to be called selfish. And that happened really early.
Mhm.
It happened as a teenager when age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, I wanted to go out with friends and I wanted a boyfriend and I wanted to change my hair and I wanted certain things. And these are like very, to me now, like, oh my goodness, like you're just being a kid, like it's totally normal.
Yeah.
But within my home and being the eldest female in my sibling set, it was frowned upon. It was, you're giving them a bad example. You are supposed to be the responsible one. You are supposed to be the one who shows them the way. And I think it happened when my mom and I were getting in the most kind of like conflict, because I was stepping away from the role of perfect child, good child. There is no like these labels that were placed on me, that I was responsible, that I was dependable, and I was still in part those things, and I wanted to be myself and explore myself. And through that, a lot of my self-exploration was sort of like muted and like toned down, because I couldn't bring shame to my family. And I couldn't have a desire as a teen.
Like very mixed messages, it sounds like,
Yeah.
about what you were trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this experience for me of like, I became selfish, or I became kind of this, and to eventually get to that point where Viridiana is saying, of moving out and being the first in my family of my 5 siblings to move out at 26 years old. And it wasn't until a later time, and it took me, I'm talking teenage years to 26, it took me such a long time to get there. Pero lo logré, and that's the biggest thing, that I chose myself at a time where what felt like I was abandoning my family.
That feels really assuring to hear, because I feel like I'm still struggling with that sometimes, being the oldest as well.
Absolutely. And I'll just say, I mean, I resonate with all this, and it's like hitting really close to home, because I just had a therapist appointment yesterday about a lot of this stuff. But for me, it really began as like my life. Well, one of the points where I felt like my life was just crumbling apart in terms of like the foundations that I've known for a long time. I've talked about this on this podcast actually before, but you know, the way that I was brought up, and I wonder if other folks resonate based off of what was brought up, is like hyper overachieving. Like that was my life. Like it was overachieving, and I'm the only child, so it's just me. And it's like a constant struggle to figure out like, okay, how much of this is like, hey, I need space, versus like, am I being considered a bad son? And all these expectations, like the weight of the world of being like first gen, being the only child, a son of immigrants, like all of those things. And so for me, it was around like 2017. And the reason why my platform and business is called Reclaiming Your Happiness with Limas is because that's when everything was falling apart for me, like engagement broken apart, career change, like educational change, all the things were happening at the same time. But I told myself at that time, I was like, in order for me to reclaim my happiness, I need to. And at that point, it was like leave a toxic environment. It was to finally choose me. And the other thing that's just like an overlying theme that I am still really like figuring out is when to like take off that mask, right? Like we are oftentimes brought up like with a certain persona that we need to play, like whether it's in family or at work or certain things. And for me, that just became exhausting. And I was so tired of just saying like, I'm great today, or I'm doing really well. And I was just lying because I was just anxious and depressed and all those things. And so for me, like reclaiming my happiness, and it's an ongoing journey, has been like a radical form of self-love, because it's actively choosing myself regardless of what other people seem to label me as. Because I've also been called selfish by my own family members, or like conceited, or like I think I'm too much because I'm removing myself from like the gossip and all those things. But yeah, it's a journey. So I'm still on it. I'll say that.
Yeah. I think that the journey to self-love, maybe I don't know about like in a physical aspect, but when you're mentally like pursuing self-love, it can potentially mean losing love from others, or our perception of that, right? So for example, I resonate with the overachieving aspect. So if I stop overachieving, take off that persona and love myself more, then my parents aren't going to love me. Then my boss isn't going to think I'm worthy. And I was deriving my worthiness from outside of me, right? I was saying others need to love me so that I can be worthy. And so I think that the subject self-love and worthiness go hand in hand, and they're like kind of tied together. So I would love to know if any of you experienced that push and pull? I mean, it sounds like you guys all did, but that push and pull of like, wow, like if I go deeper into loving myself and detaching myself from these identities, you stop becoming everything to everyone. And that's scary, right? That's scary because that's the role you've played the majority of your life.
I'm currently going through that right now with my family. They I get told a lot that I'm selfish, that I think that I'm better than them, and I think it's because now I'm taking I'm taking more time to really get to know myself and love myself, and so that means that I'm stepping away from certain situations when it doesn't it's just disturbing my peace. So a lot of the time, if I'm not involved in something, it's because, you just want to hang out with your friends. But little do they know, I am going to the beach to go journal, you know? Um, and yeah, basically that push and
Yeah,
pull.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna piggyback off of that because that's literally the same thing. Like, it's like some days I feel like, oh, I made so much progress. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and then I'm like, wait, I have a long way to go. Like, I'm still, I constantly say like I need to like. There's a way to love my parents and also not be there for them as much. My dad's really good on letting me be independent and like do your thing, you know. But I know he suffers from mental illness a lot. So although he tells me like do your thing, I still feel constantly guilty for like even if I'm
Mhm.
just having a weekend somewhere and it's like how's my dad doing, you know, and I constantly have to think about him. My mom, I think she struggles more with seeing me kind of outgrow her. She had me at 16, so you know, I don't have any kids, and I think she sees a life that she didn't have. Sometimes I catch myself like not trying to sound like I'm bragging or sound like I'm like doing too much. And I know she's proud of me regardless, but I can't help but feel some type of guilt for trying to do something better or trying to you know, have a different life. And so I have that like back and forth a lot too. But I have siblings, I have three little brothers. So that makes it super challenging where it's like, how can I be there for them as much as possible and be the adult that I never had while still prioritizing my mental health and my feelings.
I think this is
Definitely.
where our fellow therapists can help us and talk about boundaries.
Yeah,
I would love to hear like what your perspective is on this, on that push and pull, and maybe some
Yeah.
tips on that, you know.
For me, what comes up is like what kind of narrative is going on there, and sometimes questioning like, is that narrative mine? Is that narrative my parents? And I've already owned it too, right? So I think it's really important that we take a step back and really realize as first generation, um, breaking cycles, right? And all these narratives and all these thoughts and these beliefs, it's literally breaking it down and not owning it anymore and understanding where it stems from, the core issue of it, the feelings behind it, your thought process, and where you feel like you can make a change in your behavior. And I just did some CBT there with regards to cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a type of approach, thinking about your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors, right? So, and where you think you can make change. A lot of those narratives are not even ours. Um, and so it's that mentality that we have to break, and we have to take a step back and take that inventory of like what is coming with us as like first generations and what we want to break.
Right.
yeah.
Okay, maybe a follow-up topic will be control, you know, because I think there's a lot of wanting to control in that holding those stories.
Oh, yeah.
I did want to share what was coming up was sort of like guilty feelings. Like I feel guilty and like, oh, that it just like weighs on us so much because like Viridiana saying, like the narratives that are already there, like if we believe them, then we do feel bad. We are bad kids to our parents. I think something that has really helped has been differentiating between, are you guilty of something? Like I took you to court and were found guilty type of thing, or you just having a guilty feeling. Very different
Yeah.
experience of I feel guilty. I feel like I'm abandoning my parents, but that is not fully the truth. It is a visceral feeling that I'm having that my body is overwhelmed with. And part of that, how can I manage and how can I kind of like sit with? The guilty feelings are going to be there because I did choose to go to the beach and journal. Maybe in part they're going to be there. So having this experience of, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Like feelings are normal, right? And all these feelings, we were not raised to feel them either.
They're so new to us. So we're navigating these new experiences. And I a lot of the times I tell my clients, like, do it feeling guilty.
Yeah. Ooh,
Like,
I love that tagline. Feel the guilt and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can totally like relate to that too, because on the 29th, it was my brother's birthday. My family, they can be triggers for me. And even on his birthday, I was like, I want to spend time with him because he's my brother. I love him, but at the same time, I wanted to go to the beach and journal, and I wanted some time for myself because Sundays are usually they're like my me days. And I everyone, even my friends, know, they respect that. They don't try to hang out on those days, and I'm very just kept to myself on those days. And that happened to be his birthday, so it was kind of like I felt guilty if I chose to do that, and I still chose to do that, and I still chose to spend time with him. But there was like a moment where I was like, you know what, I can just journal another day, or I'll go to the beach another day. I'll just spend time with him. But I'm like, no, if I really want to do that, I'm gonna respect my intentions and what I want to do, and go ahead and do that. But yeah, I felt guilty for a moment, and I was like, you know what, I'm still gonna do it no matter what. Yeah.
That's good. I struggle with that. I struggle with saying like no. I think only with my parents. Like with everyone else, it's always like, no, I'm not in the mood, whatever. And then just with my parents, it's what makes me feel like yeah, it's just more guilt.
Yeah, guilt is a huge part of this journey, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's something I feel almost on a daily basis. Gotten easier, but especially with boundary setting, I think my biggest trigger / challenge has been with my parents, specifically with my mom, around just like how to implement boundaries, knowing that they love you, right? Like, and I learned from my therapist the difference between like and or. So like I can go ahead and say that, they love me, but they also have placed a narrative on me, right? So there's that and that two things can exist at once. And that's helped me immensely, because my brain, when it tries to like go into defense mode, when it comes to this like feeling part of it, goes into logic. And that's where my therapist is constantly challenging me. She's like, okay, like, how do you talk about the emotion and that the fact that two things can exist, even though that they may be at conflict? And that's been like mind blowing to me. So, but yes, I feel guilt too.
Yeah. I think it's a constant balance, and every person is going to have to think about their own situation, because I think, for example, for me, when I decided to go all in was when I saw that the people that I was serving, it kind of felt like a bottomless pit, like it was never going to be enough, right? And so it was like, okay, I'm recognizing this, and here I am constantly pouring into that bottomless pit. And at the same time, I'm drowning. So who do I want to save, or what do I want to put my attention to? And when I speak with clients that are in that like push and pull moment, I talk about like, whose peace are you protecting in the things that you choose to do? Whose happiness are you protecting? For example, I thought, well, I'm doing it for their happiness, for their peace, to make them proud. But then I realized they're never as proud as I think they will be, or enough satisfied. So then I said, okay, then to me, that's like the permission slip to like go all in on my own, like journey. So I think that's kind of, yeah. Yeah, I think you have to do that for yourself, right? I think all of us have probably gone through a moment where it just feels overwhelming, like too much. If you then choose to still put myself to the side despite that, then that's where you're going to experience the burnout and the feeling of something needs to change. If you haven't gotten to that point, maybe this conversation is like, no, that doesn't resonate, and that's okay. That's good. Hopefully you don't get to that point.
Yeah.
So with self-love, I think that there's also a topic that goes hand in hand, which is self-acceptance. Because I think that when we hear about self-love, then we're like, well, I'll love myself when. And there's always this when I lose the weight, when I get the job, when I have a house. And so I think that the true journey into self-love is I love myself now and I'll love myself then. So I'm wondering like if you guys just have anything to talk about in regards to that.
When I was focusing on my business, I started going to the gym, and that helped my confidence a lot too. And that started like my self-esteem got better and all those things. And recently I kind of slacked off going to the gym, and I got on the scale and I'm like, damn, like I've never weighed this much. Like, and I didn't pressure myself about it. I was just more like, okay, well, I've been loving food lately and like I'm happy about it. And when I feel like eating ice cream, I do, and it just makes me feel good, whatever. And I think that was like a small little glimpse of like accepting myself, but also knowing that like that doesn't define me, you know, like I have so many layers of who I am.
I
Yeah.
think
Can relate to that.
I think for me, like self-acceptance, one has been like learning to practice it on a daily basis. And I would be lying if I said that it's like daily. I'm like, yeah, I love myself. That would be lying. But I think like at the core of like knowing who I am, there is acceptance and there's love, and that's been just an ongoing journey. But I think a bigger part of it for me has been owning my identities. And so I came out later in age, like at 27, I came out as bisexual, and like that has been such a freeing thing because like understanding the balance between like masculine and feminine energy, and like having always been in long-term relationship with women and now being with a partner with a man, and like understanding like all these aspects of myself that have kind of just been hidden under the surface for a long time, and like finally coming into that space. And it's kind of connected to everything else because it's connected to like my spirituality. Like I really strongly identify as spiritual, but I also have like a psychology background. And so like blending that science and the psychology with the spirituality and owning it has been so powerful to me, because there's always going to be people that are like, oh, you believe in crystals and tarot and all that stuff. It doesn't exist. And I'm like, it exists for me, y'all. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. So like, that's what I focus on. But I've learned this is like a new word for me too, is like a recommitment, because sometimes I lose sight of those things and I have to, and sometimes it is daily where I'm like, wait, like, are you being mean to yourself? Are you jumping back into the overachieving pool? Like, where is this coming from? And recommitting to my purpose. I think that's a bigger thing. And it ties to my self-acceptance journey. And like kind of continuously refining myself. But knowing like the core of my being still exists. I know those parts of myself, but it's like a daily journey where I have to really remind myself, like, be gracious to yourself, be nice to yourself, because my inner saboteur can be kind of mean sometimes.
I don't know if it's like just my family, but they're like my biggest bullies. Like I was so insecure about myself, and no 10-year-old girl should feel that insecure. And I felt really insecure for so long about myself. Despite that, like learning how to still just accept you and yourself and everything that it comes with. Now that I have brothers too, I recognize that everything that I am is going to impact them so much. And they have an adult that I never had as a kid. And like that to me means so much to me.
Yeah, you're referring to like a protective figure that whether it is a parent or not, that it's a protective figure. And in like healing kind of like that early hurt, because a lot of this does start when we're very young, like you're saying about family narratives and the way that they call us names for our body, and they just refer to us that way, flaco, gorda, like it's just kind of part of the culture. So having some sense of holding grace and holding space for those earlier parts and those parts that we have wanted to cast away when we feel ashamed, or when we feel sort of like cringe, like, oh, why did I do that when I was that age? Or why did I, date this person or allow this thing? Like even for those parts that we wish we could get rid of, that we create space now where we at least wonder about them, or at least remain curious about them, so that if it's not a positive kind of like regard, that we can have at least neutrality, with the hope of eventually having some sort of like, well, little one was going through something then. Little me wearing green contacts in high school was going through something, and wearing all green clothes because it was my favorite color, was going through something. but yeah, having some sense of those, we get to create space for that, all parts of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think is easier to love, like you're personally, mentally or physically? Which one have you had an easier or harder time with? I'll say for me, physically has been harder than like mentally. You know, I've made space for all aspects of me and all of that good stuff, but there's still some work to do there with physically. I think there's just, I mean, I think in general there's so much messaging, but there's so much messaging around like body image, you know, and like how to modify. And now with plastic surgery, right? Like there's just so many different versions that you should be. But yeah, I would love to know for you guys what has been harder or easier.
I would
Yeah,
say
go
for
for it.
me would be more mental. Um, because my words of affirmation and that's my love language. So for me, like I've always yawned that from my mother. And that is not her love language. So like her giving love language. So that's been like a mother wound that I've been working on much more recently is learning that my mom's love language is acts of service, right? And her feeding me or her doing something for me, that is her way of saying, I love you. And I also recently realized that's also a cultural thing too. That for her, she wasn't raised by giving like affirmations. So if she would do that to me right now, that would make her feel uncomfortable because she was never modeled that, right? So for me, I think it's more mental of being kind to myself because I didn't get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
for
definitely.
me,
Yeah, you're having to be the example you didn't receive.
I think it's both for me too. Um, yeah, definitely. I think uh, now where I'm at in, in my life, I feel because I was at, 411 pounds, and now that I'm like, I have lost over 100 pounds, um, it's kind of hard for me to physically see my body fluctuate up and down sometimes. Um, but because I'm working on myself mentally, I feel like I um, I try to be kind to myself more than I was before. Like initially, when I first started my weight loss journey, initially the moment I gained a little bit of weight, I'm like, oh gosh, I would say unkind things to myself, and now it's like I see it as like you've come so far, even if you gain 20 pounds, 30 pounds, it's okay. Like, you know that you're in a much better place mentally. So I'm definitely more kind to myself now. Um, but yeah, it's still a struggle sometimes.
Yeah. Do you get
Oh,
reminded about how much you weighed before by your family sometimes?
I never really had support from my family. They would point out, like my dad, I remember my dad saying, "Oh, well, how come your chest looks so saggy? You need to work on
Um,
putting more muscle on." So it's like, it's never enough. It always felt like it was never enough. And
yeah.
eventually I was like, you know what? I'm on this journey. I'm on this journey myself. You guys are not on this journey. You guys are just seeing from the outside. So uh I'm like, whatever perception people have on me, my family has on me, it's none of my concern. It's just none.
Yeah.
So I try not to whatever negative perception they have on me. It's now at a point in my life where it doesn't really affect me anymore as much.
Regarding this topic, I think I mentally have felt confident. I think even though my mom and I had a lot of friction, she really reinforced, and I think I shared it on our podcast when I went on yours, that she just really believed in me, and that mentally I think really guarded and protected me. She has this thing where she would say, Georgina, I can drop her off in China and I know she'll be okay.
Mm.
She'll figure it out, even if she doesn't speak the language, even if she doesn't know anything. And I was referring to, please, I was a kid. I did not need to be dropped off anywhere.
Yeah.
That idea didn't need to be instilled in me. But it somehow created this barrier for me internally that was, I can accomplish anything, I can do anything in this life. And even thinking about my body, I think I have now gained weight after my baby, and lots of women say you lose it after, and if you breastfeed it, all the weight will come off, and it hasn't. So it has been this transitional piece now where I guess now as an adult I have some awareness, more awareness of my body. But because I had that mental protection or shield, I feel like it's not impacting me as much. I'm sort of like, oh, it's a different pant size now. Oh, it's obvious. It's a different situation. Things that used to fit me before don't fit me now. So how do I adapt? What do I do with this new body, and how will it serve me? Because it carried a baby, and it has, I mean, it's so amazing. And yeah, that's just what I wanted to share, that my mental kind of space has helped me to go through difficulties now that I'm a little bit older.
Yeah. And that episode is called Parentified Children, if you guys want to check it out. So I would love to know what are top 3 things that you do to show yourself some love or to take care of yourself every day. And I'll go first. So the first thing is I do have like a space where I go to every day, and I have like a picture of my inner niña, or not my inner niña, but like 5-year-old me, 13-year-old me too, because I did an inner child healing session, and I like learned that I always refer to my inner niña, but my inner teen was the one that actually needs some love too. So that's one way. I'll go there, I'll share my wins with them, with my inner niña and teen. And I do also have, like Emily said, like I have my vision of where I see myself, but I also tell myself, like, if you never achieve that, I'm still gonna love you. You're still worthy. And then lastly, I do something called mirror work. It was one of the best things that I did for my self-love, but I'll leave it at that.
I try to do something for my mind, something for my soul, and something for my body every day. So my body, I at least take a walk. I'm a dog mom too, so I have a dog, so I have to walk him. So that's like a daily thing. So I take a short walk here by the beach, and I meditate every morning. So I do that for my soul. And my mind, I do affirmations as well.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, like I said, when I would go to the gym a lot, I did notice my mental health a lot better. So I definitely want to start going again, even if it's not the gym, like just going on a walk or just being outdoors. I try my best to at least once a week journal, even if it's just an update of where my life is at. Because I look back on some of my old journals, I'm just like, wow, I remember exactly how I felt at that exact moment. And I love reading back on my journals. So I do journal. I need to have a coffee. I know it sounds kind of dumb. I don't know. But for me, it's like I need to have a coffee or a tea or something just alone, like by myself alone. Even if I just go on a drive, like I just want to go to a drive, get a coffee, and just be alone, listening to a podcast or listening to some mellow music. Like that puts me at peace a lot for my soul. And then for my mind, I need to work on that. So I'm going to take you up on those affirmations more.
I can go next just because I'm joining you on the coffee train. So every morning, and I'm trying to like get better at this just for saving money purposes, but every morning I take my drive, and I go get myself coffee, and sometimes I'll switch it up, but like it's more than just getting the coffee. Like for me, it's like a mood booster, and it's also like already starting off the day, like just by myself, hearing some good music or a podcast or something. And also, like, I'm a big believer, it's not necessarily a daily thing, but in like money dates, and it doesn't have to be like something extravagant, but buy myself a coffee and like my favorite croissant. Like to me, that's like communicating to the universe that like I'm worthy of abundance, that I'm worthy of love, that I'm worthy of expansion, those types of things. And it could be like a $3 thing, but it's communicating to the universe that I am worthy of all that. So that's my daily thing. The other thing is I have a spiritual like hygiene practice, I guess you can think about it, but it's like visualizing, like ridding myself of any sort of negativity that I may have absorbed, and then words of affirmation. So I have like this same affirmation every day, which is like, I affirm that I'm magical, powerful, and blessed. Like that's like my daily thing. And I have like this anointing oil that I got at the spiritual store that I use. And the other thing is working out. Like I have to. I do kickboxing, but when I don't do kickboxing, it's taking a walk or just like getting some sort of air is super important. And I'm honest with like people about that. Like I tell people, and I didn't used to do this, but like at work, I'm like, hey, even to my management, I'm like, I have to go to the gym to like keep my sanity, to keep myself at bay. And just telling people that I prioritize these things has been a bigger part of the practice too, is like not just kind of doing it for myself, but telling people like, hey, I need this rather than I just want this. So that in a sense, I'm also kind of implementing that boundary.
And Enrique?
For me, I would say waking up every day with gratitude. I always make sure I wake up, no matter, you know, how the day looks. I start it being grateful, to be alive, first and foremost. And then at the end of the day, I end every day with journaling. And I allow myself that non-judgment space where I'm just able to just write whatever I want, because oftentimes we have that. I feel like for me, there's a lot of times where I would have like a thought or a feeling, and I would say to myself, oh, that's stupid. Oh, you're stupid. Like, you shouldn't. And now when I journal, or even now when I just have those random thoughts, I'll catch myself correcting myself like, no, you're not. You're not. Working out. And then also I love watching sunsets, just sitting, watching a sunset and just being grateful, just to experience that every single day, or whenever I have the chance to be able to just sit there in my own thoughts, and that's where I feel the most at peace, is when I'm sitting by myself watching the sunset and just acknowledging it, and loving every bit of it, and who I am at that very moment.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that what I hear in all of your guys' responses is it goes beyond the actual thing, right? Like it always has this other effect to what you do. So it's not just a coffee, it's feeling like at peace or having some alone time to process or start your day and have control over it. It's not just the affirmation, it like gives you that reminder of who you are and what you want. It's not just the sunset, it brings you peace and it does more to you. And I think the reason I want to mention that is because there is a difference between self-care and self-love. And I think it's important for people to know that, especially if you're listening and you're new to these subjects. You can get caught up in the self-care piece. And I mean, I think you can turn that into self-love if it has that intention and it gives you something beyond. But if you get wrapped up in just doing self-care items and checking them off your list, you're not necessarily diving into self-love, right? So I just wanted to make that distinction for those that are listening. I think all of you guys already know that, but it's definitely something that where I started, and it was like, I'm taking a bath, like I'm getting a pedicure, getting my nails done. Why don't I feel more confident, right? Or better, internally. And so definitely there's like a mind, body, and spirit aspect to it all. So to wrap up, I would like us to fill in self-love is with just one word. So self-love is, to me, self-love is freedom.
Trust.
Self-love is peace.
Self-love is worthiness.
Self-love is acceptance.
Love that. Well, thank you guys so much. I wish I had 3 hours with y'all. But I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Every single person here does have an episode of their own that either already came out or is coming out very soon. So you can check that out as well, and I'll make sure to link it in the description. So just to wrap up, if you'd like to say any final words.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you guys for allowing me to be in your guys' space and energy, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, everybody just being so open and just comfortable with sharing everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Priscilla.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla.
For thinking of us.
Thank you guys so much. And if you liked this episode and you found it helpful, can you guys please like, subscribe, comment your biggest takeaway, and share this episode with your amigas, amigos, amigues. And remember, FirstGens, I love you, I love me, and I can't wait for you guys to love yourselves.